Hi teachers, it's Hallie from Year 9, and the question on the board is, what do you feel makes a good lesson and why? And I think what makes a good lesson is when the teacher makes the effort to make sure every student is comfortable in the classroom. Because if a student's not comfortable in the classroom, they're going to feel uncomfortable with asking questions if they don't know what's happening, and they'll just be very timid when trying to make an effort to collaborate with others. So I do feel that teachers, you should really make a very big effort to make sure that each and every single student is comfortable in your classroom. Thank you.
What I think makes a good lesson is for the teacher to not just state facts or show you how to do something, but to involve all the students in ways that teachers don't normally do when they have a deadline to meet for a certain unit, subject, or something like that. To do kind of this, each child is different, but a way that normally works best for interacting with student is to kind of make them feel like they're having fun. So, for example, in math class, we did a kind of goat scenario where we had to figure out how much grass a goat could eat. A lot of students thought it was fun, and so they remembered the method, they remembered how we did it, when we did it, why, the point of it. And they remembered everything more than just randomly stating facts, because most of the time if you just randomly state facts, it goes in one ear and out the other. Yeah.
And I also think that what makes a lesson well prepared is when the teachers don't have to read out of their textbook, but they also have something well prepared like their PowerPoint and different lessons for the students. Also how the teachers can talk with the students at different times, and they can just get to know how they feel about the lesson and how they're teaching, and they can ask them ideas of how they can make their lesson better. And that's what I think makes a good lesson.
So essentially what I think would make the best lesson would be when a teacher utilizes certain aspects of, I guess, human behavior depending on the audience. So if a teacher were to utilize the aspect of competitiveness or in their teaching methods, it would allow for the students to become more engrossed or interactive with the lesson and probably be more interested in the knowledge that's being taught.
So I'm the type of person who likes to know what I'm learning and why, as into like what's the purpose, like what am I going to be able to do with it in the future. So I really like when we're able to cross subjects together, because that just shows me how I can apply the knowledge to different things. And I also think it's really important to keep us challenged and intrigued and like even inspired if possible, because it is hard. But I think that's like when we learn best, because that's when we're all like really interested and focused and getting things done.
What makes a good lesson and why? I think a lesson is good when all of the students in the class are comfortable with each other and the teacher. Ideas can be thrown around and everybody can share their opinion without the fear of being corrected in a harsh manner or laughed at. I also think it's good when we have real life examples to connect to what we're learning in the textbook. So any linking activities such as internet games, videos, scenarios, it all helps to bring it all together. So yeah.
What I think would make a good lesson is that teachers and students should have more increased social interaction. They should constantly talk to each other, discuss with each other, instead of teachers just talking and taking down notes. I also believe that students should be given more leadership opportunities. And what I mean by that is students should be able to sometimes teach the subject. And I noticed from the past that after I saw my teacher, Mr. Rogers, told me that to teach the subject, and I actually learned more from that. So that was a good way of learning.
A good lesson is when the teacher is good, intelligent, the class is quiet, and you're doing your work by yourself, and you're not disturbing anybody, and you're listening to the teacher when the teacher speaks.
Okay, so in my opinion, I believe that a good lesson includes interactions between the teachers and the students, as well as the students can interact with each other and share their opinions. And it's not just all about reading information from a book, copying it down, doing examples. You're allowed to talk with each other, share ideas, use examples from the real world to feel more like you're in your own society. It's not just about what the book says to you.
When it's obvious that a teacher is engaged and passionate about teaching a subject towards the students, it greatly reflects on how the students learn. So it's good for teachers to have passion and show energy when teaching, positive energy. And like simply handing out a booklet or a leaflet and expecting students to almost self-teach themselves isn't the best way, because students need clarification and true understanding on the subject. They can't teach themselves that topic. And finally, teachers should understand that all students learn differently and at a different rate. So trying to teach with different techniques or from different aspects to try and suit all the needs of every student is another good way to make a lesson interesting.
I think a good lesson would be carried out in not a traditional classroom environment where the teacher just gives you the information and you're supposed to answer questions and take notes, but rather a place where you can have discussion and you feel comfortable and you're actually doing what you're learning about rather than just taking notes and trying to memorize it.
I think what makes a good lesson is when you have peace and quiet to do your work and there's no disturbances around you.
And also have your lesson planned before you start it, so you can make sure that everything goes the way you want it to.
I think what makes a good lesson is that when everybody is listening to the teacher and the room is quiet, and the teacher also, when they're doing the lesson, they have fun with the kids. They don't just sit there and bore the children.
What makes a good lesson to me is when the teacher creates a good atmosphere for learning at the start of the lesson. Because if you're stuck in an abrasive atmosphere, it's hard for a student to absorb information if they don't feel comfortable with the classroom.
Okay, so in my opinion, a good lesson is when teachers and students interact more. We can debate or have a friendly discussion. It allows us to see same points from different perspectives.
What makes a good lesson is the teacher need to be interesting and funny.
Okay, so what I think makes a good lesson is communication between us students and the teachers, because that helps you to participate better in the lesson.
What I think makes a good lesson is the way that a teacher decides to present their information, say if it's visually attracting or captivating, and if a teacher decides to challenge us, put challenges above our standard average level of what we're capable of.
What I think a teacher can make a good lesson for the teachers is if they let the kids have fun in the class, let the kids express themselves about what they're feeling about the class and how they're liking it, and let the students give their own opinion about how they can make the class better.
What makes a good lesson? A good lesson is by good communication and relationship with your teachers, good hard work, and good environment, which helps you to focus on your studies and do things better.
Okay, what do I think makes a good lesson? I prefer to have more, instead of a lecture, I prefer a conversation between the teacher. So more of a back and forth conversation about the topic. So if the teacher says something, I say something back, and we just discuss it more, having a lecture and me writing down notes, because if I talk about it long enough, I'll eventually remember it.
What I think makes a good lesson is when the students are challenged, but they understand everything. Like if you have more advanced group, you would prepare something different, including the lesson. So for instance, if they finish their work, they have something more, a little bit more challenging for their type to do after they finish their work.
What makes a good lesson to me is an interactive classroom, ideas being thrown around, people answering questions, the teacher involving us in the lesson. And I'm a fan of videos and examples from like the past, like stuff that students have done in the past, and it's being shown to us for inspiration and as an example. I'm into that, and I quite like. I just like a vivacious environment.
Okay, so what I think makes a good lesson is a teacher that's strict but also fun, and is not like afraid to yell at the class once in a while. And I also like the implement of technology because it's more interesting.
What I think is a good lesson is that the teacher and students know what's going on, everyone's concentrated, it's not just dilly-dallying.
I think that a good lesson is an interactive lesson where everyone is involved and everyone gets a chance to give their input.
I think that I would like to have a teacher who would give us like homework a lot, but like the homework would be more easier to do.
I think that makes a good lesson is when the teacher is positive about and they have a good energized body for the day.
Hi, I'm Catherine from grade 9 and I'm in Carib. And I think that something that makes a good lesson is to make sure that every student feels like they're learning in the way that they should be learning. And by this I mean people who are auditory learners, who are hands-on learners, like to interact with things to learn, and people who are better at being visual. And this is important in a good lesson because it allows students to achieve their full potential.
What I think makes a good lesson is having a more interactive classroom with more discussions, possibly taking the lesson outside the classroom, going to different environments.
I think what makes a good lesson is when the teacher presents the content to the student and the student really could relate to it by her breaking it down and putting it on the board using words that can relate to the certain subject she's teaching. And I think that PowerPoints really do help, visual aids do help to learn.
A good lesson to me is one where the teacher can actually interact with all their students and actually tell you how they got their answers. And if they're not challenging you, then I feel that they're not really explaining what to do, and sometimes it's better if they challenge you so then you can get a better understanding of the topic.
I think what makes a good lesson is not just one where I could learn a lot of new things, because to be honest, you can learn anything from anyone, anywhere, and with the advent of the internet, knowledge is very easily accessible. I think a good lesson is when the teacher really makes you think about things in a new light and change my actual perspective on the topic. I also think things like making me really think about it instead of just giving me the answer, because the ability to figure something out, I think, is the most important skill that I've been learning at St. Andrews School.